Hi, this is Evan from Digital Team Coach, and today I have with me Reverend John Sanderson from St. George's Ivanhoe Anglican Church. Welcome, John.
Hi, Evan. Good to see you again, and good to talk with you on matters of technology and ministry.
Yeah, I'd love to hear a bit about your story and your journey with online systems, and particularly with the church management system you've got in place in Foodle.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of Infoodle, which is a customer relationship management application that's designed by a company that's based in New Zealand. It was originally designed for the church and not-for-profit sector and has grown particularly in New Zealand, Australia, the United States of America, and more recently, the United Kingdom. In sharing the story of the journey with this particular application, I'll probably delete its name because there are other applications out there that may have more applicability in a functional sense to the needs of other parishes or churches and ministry contexts, and really just share with you the story of how we decided upon that particular application and where we went with it, and particularly how I'm now using it in a much smaller context than when I first discovered it.
Great.
All right. Well, I'm fortunate in that many years ago, I worked in management consultancy with a particular view at e-commerce and strategic planning. So I was able to draw upon that skill set when I served in what would be defined as a large church in another diocese here in Australia. I was also blessed in that context to have, as a member of our community, a woman who'd been the owner and managing director of a major software company, which had been bought out by a global multinational tech company from the United States of America. So I was able to draw upon a person who had significant professional expertise in the area of application design and functionality, and particularly in analysing what users or organisations seek to do with software applications and technology platforms. So I was very fortunate in that way. But to tell a little bit of the story, we had a parish administration software system that had been previously purchased at diocesan level and given to all the parishes in that diocese. Through a range of circumstances, that application had to a degree become redundant because it had not been upgraded over time, either at parish or diocesan level. There was a particular gap between the knowledge and ability of users and what that historical or legacy system could do. So we conducted a little bit of analysis as to whether it was still a viable system, because often in my experience as a consultant, clients they have a pain point, and so they seek to buy something new to fix their pain point, where it might be if they just learned to use what they had or were more effective in the utilization of what they had, they might lose their pain point completely and actually grow their business or their role. So we looked at the system to see if it could be revitalized and re-energized and upgraded and used. And we came to the conclusion it couldn't be for many different reasons. So we were at the situation where we had to start afresh. And starting afresh, the pain point for the ministry context I was in was the ability to maintain contact with a large parish. So we're talking about a database that's grown to about 1,600 people, of whom about 500 attend church on a regular basis. So that's at least once a month. And where the usual attendance on weekend services was about 350. That congregation is a gathered community drawn from across a large city here in Australia. So that was the pain point. How do you maintain contact with all those people? Because there was a fear, particularly amongst the clergy, that it was possible to attend that church, be part of the worshipping community, and then be missed for a few weeks by virtue of its size. So that was the initial trigger or pain point. So we then began a global search for a customer relationship management application that would deliver functionality that not only met our pain points now, but would also enable us to grow into the application in the future. So what we might call future proofing. So looking at what we do now as a community, as a faith community, and what we might like to do in the future. Because often, again, the pain point drives finding the solution. But really, if you go through the process of analysis of who you are, what you do, who you're called to be, and how you might do that, you get better value for your time and your investment by finding something that's future-proofed. Because like many technology projects around the world, people buy something off the shelf, they use only part of its functionality, and then it might be redundant for their context within a short period of time. I might pause there, Evan, because you might have questions and clarification as I go off the story.
Yeah, I was just about to pop in
Yeah.
with the question for you around the process of identifying what your needs were in that time and moving forward. So who was engaged in that process at that point in time?
So the people we engaged were as follows: the clerical leadership and lay leadership of the parish. So you think the stipendiary, non-stipendiary clergy, the wardens, parish council, and then we went through the different ministry teams and groups that existed within our parish context, and we looked to ascertain what their needs were now, and we did a bit of navel gazing as to what their needs might be in the future.
So you surveyed all of them?
Basically, we did a needs analysis, a survey of every group that existed within the parish at that time.
Yeah. And with this process, you were doing it just for your parish. You weren't doing this on behalf of the whole diocese. They were still going to continue using this legacy software?
Yeah, so the legacy software had been retained by a number of parishes, but our research showed that quite a number of places had just done their own independent research and had already migrated to other platforms with varying levels of success and effectiveness and with various budgetary implications. You know, some had spent a little bit of money, some had spent quite a bit, some had quite rudimentary systems, some had some very sophisticated systems. They tend to be, what I found in a small survey of other places was that the systems they bought either sought to address an immediate pain point, something that didn't work, or we want to do this, so what will enable us to do that specific thing? Whereas we were trying to take a more broader view, and that was probably a reflection of the expertise we had available to us.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So what happened next?
What happened next? So my colleague went off on a global search looking at customer relationship management applications that, in first and foremost, had been intentionally designed for church and not-for-profits. The reason we looked at those first was that we believed, our assumption was that if you look at that end of the market, those people would understand faith communities and therefore have more likely to have designed functionality that meets the needs of faith communities. And also many customer relationship management applications around the world are designed for particular market segments. And so their functionality reflects their target markets of the people who have designed and sell them. So we primarily looked at the church-based ones. There was a lot to be found in North America, but we found this one in New Zealand, so in the Asia Pacific, and I'll come to why we came to that. So we looked globally. We looked particularly at products that were designed for us, for churches. We did look at one or two others that were more aimed at a more commercial market, but they really eliminated themselves by virtue of size and cost and complexity, and so we quickly eliminated those. We also looked at what would be the associated cost for the IT infrastructure. So if you're going to look at a big system or any system, will your environment, your architecture, your hardware architecture, and the software you have actually be able to support the use of that application? And that was a driver for us in our analytical process. And so we came and so whilst we did end up having an upgrade of our standard operating environment, it really was a case of bringing ourselves up to date with what was available in the marketplace, but it wasn't driven by the application, because applications can often have a significant cost in IT hardware, and the one we selected doesn't, because it's a cloud-based application stored on secure servers around the world. For us, it was stored on in a data center in Sydney. So if you think of, for security-wise, which is, and security was an important factor for us, it's stored in a place on equipment that's akin to the banks, Amazon, all your major retail outlets would have their applications stored in the same place. So because it was cloud-based, it meant that any web-enabled device, so your telephone, tablets, PCs, can access the information whenever you are in the world. And as an interesting aside, we tested it on an Emirates flight from Sydney to New Zealand and back. And the developers were very impressed at taking screenshots at 35,000 feet over the ditch to show that their application worked. The only thing that affected its performance was bandwidth availability, which is a reflection of how many passengers were online. So we went for that particular application because its range of functionality, the modules it offers, related to our current situation. And myself and the other person in the assessment team, we believe that long term, over 5 to 10 years, its functionality wouldn't become redundant, but would enable ministry in our context. So it would be an enabler and not something that was a burden to us. Pause there again for you, Evan.
Yeah. So what were the main features that you were looking at?
Yeah, so the main features, so you think the original driver was tracking people.
Yeah.
So this particular application, every single person is a unique identity, a unique entity on the database, and all information hangs off the entity, the person. So if we, I won't share the screen on it, because if I showed you the application now, you'd see confidential information pertaining to people because it's live data. So we can, so I could, if I use you as an example, I could create you as a person on our database and record some key demographic data relating to you. And we could also create other tabs relating to the ministries that you might be involved in. We can create notes against the person and to-do. So for instance, I could have created a to-do for this meeting today, and at 7 o'clock every morning, there's automated emails sent to everybody on the system who's got outstanding to-dos. And again, built into that was some privacy, some very good privacy protocols. So if I made a note about this meeting, I can decide the level of visibility of that note. And that's quite simple to achieve. It also has a calendar scheduling functionality, which we integrated with our website and into the life of the parish. That was seen as very successful. One of the things that it had that we used much quicker than we thought was its mass mail capability. So it can send text messages, it can send mail, like a large mail merge, and you can create very discrete groups as to who you want to send your text messages or mailings to. And so that's been heavily utilized in that previous context, not my current context, but my prior context, across the width of the parish life. The different ministry teams have created their own discrete groups and used that mail out to send some standardized letters that were applicable to people. So for example, you don't want to be sending a mass email to everybody in your database so that you spam their inbox. You only want the people who need that relevant piece of information. So that's really been highly utilized by quite a number of groups in that particular parish. It has a finance module that integrates giving and tracking of finances. We didn't buy it for that because we were on another legacy system, but I think they might have actually migrated to the partner finance application. And again, that provides a much more integrated reporting and communication system. Also within the system which I've created here, this might be a good little example. Safe Ministry is very important to all of us. And it took me 15 minutes, probably a little bit less, to create a tab in the database for Safe Ministry. So now I get 90 days notice if somebody's working with children check, or their criminal record check, or their Safe Ministry course lapsing. So I can, and so that, yeah, so I think our diocese has maybe spent some time and money on that, but within this database, it was less than 15 minutes to construct that without any high-end skills being required. I'm just going to pull it up because I might, I'll pause there. Yeah, I'm going to pause there and see if you have questions, because there's something I might go to about implementation.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about how you rolled it out to your team and then beyond.
Yeah. So we took an incremental approach to implementation. So that was based on some relevant professional experience from myself and my colleague, that from implementation of much bigger projects and much bigger organizations, that we sought to take the key users and key stakeholders and educate them well in the use of the application. There's a bit of a motherhood statement that says that most users only use 20% of the functionality of an application and 80% of it is redundant. So we try to invest, and that there's another view taken that most organizations do not invest the time and resources into implementation that they do into research, design and build.
Yeah.
So we were very conscious of that. And so we spent quite a bit of time educating the key users, as in the people who are going to use this a lot, got a lot of time and energy in educating them in how to use the application and how to customize it for their personal work practices. But through that process, we discovered a couple of interesting things. We'd had a starting point for the application as to why we were doing it and what we were looking for, and it delivered that. But when it came to the individual users embracing it, we quickly learned that find out from them what is the thing they really want this application to do. And so for the rector, my colleague, that was quite different to me. I was really keen to track all the pastoral care to stop people dropping through the gaps and not being discovered that they were not attending or missing for a few weeks or a couple of months because of the size of the parish. And so my drivers were different to my colleagues. And so in that implementation process, we intentionally said, what do you really want this to do? What would really help you right now in your life, regardless of whether we thought that was rational or logical, or even the best thing to do. But we found that when we addressed the immediate needs of the key users, their embracing of the whole application was much quicker. And we had some wry smiles 6 and 12 months afterwards where we looked at one another and said, we tried to teach them that on day one, and now here they are 6 and 12 months later singing the praises of the application about the thing they rejected on day one. And so, but to embrace, so to get a good utilization of the application across its suite of capabilities, attending to that need, we found then led to a greater use of the application. So after the key users, we then looked at all our different ministry streams, our areas of ministry, and we then targeted who we thought would make most effective use of the application in the shortest time. And we're trying to build a critical mass of positive engagement with the application and the use of it. And so we then went to the music department, which in that parish is is a significant ministry, a significant enabler of the broader ministry of the church. And they became big users of it very quick. They thought it was a godsend to them, pardon the pun, but enabled them to, through the rostering capability, to roster people on for different duties, for the music duties, and particularly for communicating effectively to the people within their department. And there's a bit in there that's been underutilized. There's an asset management module, and there's also a library module. I became a big user of the library module, and particularly when we renovated the office and got rid of a load of paper. We just scanned lots of documents onto PDFs and put it into the library we created. So again, using the library module, because we wanted to make better use of our space by utilizing the library module, it enabled us to have more effective use of our office space. So we then moved around the other lines of ministry in the parish till all were using it, be it whichever ministry group you're in, within 12 months. We set a 12-month timeline, but I think it was by month 8 we had every ministry group using the application. We didn't move, and they may have done this now, I've been away nearly 2 years now. You can create unique log-on IDs for every person that's on there, so that they could go in and update all their demographic data, particularly contact data. I don't know if they've done that yet, and I certainly haven't done that here in this much smaller context. And that's a reflection of I'm trying to balance training time for users. So here I'm trying to target currently key users that are likely to use it and use it well. So its utilization rate in my current context is much lower than my previous one. Excuse me. Yeah. Questions, Evan? I'll pause again.
Yeah, that's great. So it looks like, yeah, there's been, quite a lot of investment in time put into thinking about what the needs are, what you're actually looking for, and then getting it and rolling it out and implementing it and training people up. How do you justify the amount of investment you put into it?
Yeah, well, the real investment cost-wise was in time. The cost of the product is based on how many entities are in your database, and it's active entities. So for example, where I'm at now, it's a big thing in the life of this community to remember those who've died, who've gone before us. And so I've got currently 900 names, over 900 names in this database of deceased people. Now but they're all archived, so I don't pay for that. So you only pay, the pricing points are the number of active names on your database. So it's not an overly expensive application by price point. Where it was costly for us was in the time, but The cost benefit is this. And I want to give you an example from the previous place. We worked with 2 full-time clergy, 1 part-time, and we then had a pastoral care group that had over a dozen people in it. Because you can update the application in real time by any web-enabled device, my colleague, when he was on a conference in Rome, didn't have to email me or ring me to say what's going on in the life of the parish. He literally just opened the application on his device in Rome. He looked at his dashboard for how he's configured it for the things he wants to know about, back to the pain points, and he can see what's really going on. And so there's no need to ask me. And so we found the number of like little sidebar conversations you have in the life of a busy, big parish were greatly reduced because the transparency was increased in real time to the people who needed it. So you didn't have people asking for names and telephone numbers and email addresses because it's all there. If you hadn't seen somebody at church on Sunday, you could look and go, oh yeah, John saw them, and there's that little comment. There's even an attendance module in there. So we're in this time of COVID-19, and this is where future proofing comes in. So in COVID-19, we're required to keep attendance logs of who attends church, you know, who enters your premises. You know, you give them a pen and a piece of paper, they sign in. That's a hygiene risk and infection risk. Using the attendance module, I just look at my parish and then I literally mark the roll electronically. Now you could do that outside of COVID-19 as well. So you can say, oh, Evan hasn't been to church for 2 weeks. I think I'll give him a call. I haven't got time to call him, so I'll create a to-do for my colleague to call Evan. Say, Evan, hi, how are you going? We haven't seen you for a few weeks. And so running reports. So to justify the time, its implementation has saved a lot of time. We didn't do a definitive measure of that. We did at 12 months and 18 months, did a rough calculation to see if we were getting a cost benefit and a good cost benefit productivity improvement, and we were. But we didn't go into detailed analysis by virtue of our size, and we thought there's no need. We know it's working. So particularly around time, effective communication, and I think they've found with COVID-19 and their use of the application with keeping parishioners informed and the broader community, when you've got a community of 1,600 people to keep informed, I just see with their newsletters that are coming out and their mailings they're doing, they're really utilizing the roster functioning, the attendance module, and the mailing to get letters out. So I think you wouldn't find anybody up there in that user group who's disappointed. It's got a reporting module on it which you can customize, and that's very interesting. We did an activity there to map parishioners by postcode, suburb, and age group. So it's all dependent on whether you've got that data inputted against the people, but you can see the reports will throw up the gaps where there's no address or no postcode or no date of birth recorded. And so I did some reports around that, and because we were a gathered community and we wanted to see where we were from in Sydney, and therefore a planning of time to where you might have home groups. That was really interesting to see where people geographically were, and certainly that influenced a number of home groups in the last few years and where they were set up, because you could see where people were clustered by postcode, suburb, and also the age profile was it's proved interesting for some more detailed analytical work they've done there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, you can sort of measure to a degree what the value is, but then beyond that, you just know, like, once everyone's on board, it's working and it's serving such an important purpose.
Yeah, I think the key thing for this one, like any other big system application, is really understand its functionality and then look to see how you can integrate it into the life of your ministry context. You know, so I'll give you the utopian ideal world for me. Ideally, I would like to be using the text and the email and letter functionality more often. I'd really like to get all our pieces of paper into the electronic library. I came here to this context. This is not a criticism of anybody who's gone before me. And I think everything technology-wise was on the computers of my 10 or 12 predecessors. There's very little on the office computer. So I think month one, I created this library and I upload things to the library so that if I fall over tomorrow, just somebody needs to log on and they'll be able to see a history of the place and what's going on. And the finance module we don't use here, but we might let go of a particular well-known accounting package and move to the one that partners and integrates with this application. So there's a bit in there where if people are in planned giving programs, you can put the envelope number or some unique identifier against that. And again, it has lots of privacy settings you can put in there so that only the people you identify by name and by function can access that information. So from a privacy perspective, it's a very good, very, very robust application. And the ability to create additional tabs is very easy. I might go into my name just to show you a little bit of what's possible. So this is, I'll go to dashboard to give you the standard look. So any user can customize this to whatever way they wish. So this suits my work practices. And this was a good feature that was attractive to many of the users in my previous context. So I have my to-dos. So the reds are overdue. I have 3 left in blue for today. Then, and this view as to how many I can see is all customized by the user. So you can see I've got 164 tasks I'm tracking at the moment. So red's the overdue ones, blue's today, yellow's the next few days, and then it'll go into grey for the ones ahead. I've got the date of death on the right. So from a pastoral perspective, any anniversaries of death that are coming up, like for example, my vicar's warden, she's got a family member whose anniversary of death falls in a few days' time. So if I wanted to I could use that as a trigger for a pastoral telephone call, either by myself or if I had a pastoral care team subject to privacy conditions. I also have in this one, I've created some additional what they call widgets. So, which you can move about your desktop. Birthdays, baptisms, confirmations, weddings, ordinations. And then you get into the professional standards area. So we all have a legislated responsibility to ensure the highest possible standards in our parishes. So you can say 90 days. That person there, that's one of my hall users. And so that acted as a trigger to tell Zara, could you kindly please renew your criminal record check? And when it comes in, I'll be able to click on Zara's name, update it. And so I can now say to the Diocese of Melbourne, to the Archbishop, that I can prove that we're 100% compliant. All office bearers, all hall users that have children of vulnerable people in their groups are compliant as well.
So do you have like an automated email that gets sent to that person?
I could do, but I haven't done it.
Yeah.
I'll show you in a second. So that's an important area for me. Then the latest 30 people that we've created. On the right, I have the date of death, and then the latest 10 notes. And again, this is all subject to privacy. So if you're in a team environment like yourself, you could set the privacy conditions so your colleagues could log on and could see the things that pertain to you. So if you had a colleague in ministry might log on today, I've already called Esme, who's one of our older people who's locked in aged care, and they would go, well, it wouldn't be good use of my time to ring Esme this afternoon because John's already rang. So again, from a time management and meeting the needs of your people, that proved very beneficial, because you've got to be wary of, from a pastoral care perspective, to use some secular language, over-servicing. So all the clergy and the staff have rang the same people all week but missed out on these others. So that was very important for us, particularly with people in hospital. Then this is something that might be interesting for you. Groups. Have all the groups. That a group is just a way of slicing and dicing your database.
Yeah.
And then this calendar module, which can integrate with your website. And yeah. So I'll just show you group. Then on the left, there's just different sections, different modules. So groups is just the way I've sliced and diced the database. And just try and make that a bit bigger for you, so you can just see some of them.
Yep.
Particularly around governance for clergy leaders. You can track when people were appointed, and therefore you don't fall foul of the Governance Act.
Yeah.
So I can now say that everybody who holds an appointment in this parish is not only covered safe ministry wise, but there's no issues really the term of their appointment, because I know when it started and when it ended. And you know, I've got on there you can see all the different groups. That's an interesting little thing that I use for measuring the true size of a community. You know, communities are generally measured by who attends worship, whereas scripturally the true measure of a community size is those who are actively connected with you. So I can slice and dice it. I've got 72 active regular worshippers, but I've got another 54 people who are actively connected with us. So that's the true size of the parish, as opposed to the electoral roll. You'll see how, which is measured in a different way. So if you want to measure, say, St. Hilary's queue, you can slice and dice it whichever way. And you know, all the programs you run there, they can all be groups. So all those invites you do, you've probably already got a system that does this, but for somebody new to it, so when I do invites for particular functions, you can create a new group and do the mail out to them and then mark the attendance. I might do that just as an example Sunday last, because I haven't done it. So I've identified which congregation people belong to. So if I go to attendance, there's the attendance log for the COVID lockdown. And you can say I haven't marked last Sundays yet, I don't think.
Yep.
And then you can run reports on that. Assets is greatly underutilized elsewhere, but would be a great thing to do. You know, if you want to get rid, because if you think paper-based systems require storage,
Yeah.
storage takes up space, square meters cost money.
Yeah.
So with this system, this is a huge benefit for the previous place. I'll just stop the share, unless you've got a question about that, sorry.
No, that's great. No, that's excellent.
And you can create all sorts of forms, all your rosters by ministry, lots of standard reports. Basically, you can report on anything that you've created a field for. So I'll just go back into mine as an example. There's some standard tabs across the top from left to right.
Yep.
You can put photos of people in their household, which when you produce a directory of the parish, subject to how you print it, shows that photograph. So if you've got a new team member and they want to learn who people are, dates for involvement and you can customize that. I added this safeguarding and clearances thing.
Yep.
And that took 15 minutes to design and build.
Yeah, it's so comprehensive. It's great.
Yeah. The journey, going back to my old world of consulting, it's like a toolbox.
Yes.
Yeah. You got to have the right tools for the right job. And technology is about the right tool for the right job at the right time. You know, and if you use the right tool, it enables you to be more effective in your role. And
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've got a blog post with that exact title.
Yeah.
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 So it's yeah.
So do you need an adjustable spanner, which is not as effective as one is designed for the purpose, or do you need a flat head or a screw head? Sorry.
Yeah. I don't have a spanner at the moment.
Yeah. You've got to get that. Yeah, you could be in consulting, Evan. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that's just a little bit about the journey through a process, which I think you've really well clearly articulated in your training session about looking for a system and doing the analysis, looking to the future. Don't be myopic about the pain needs of the people who are there now. How will this enable you as a tool to enable your ministry for the future? That will reduce your time, your cost, so you can be doing other things.
Spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, yeah, John, thank you so much for sharing so generously about your journey and the insights you've had along the way with the process of utilizing and putting into place good digital systems that are going to serve you for not just today but for the future. So thank you so much for your time with that today.
Thank you, Evan. Good luck.
Thank you.